Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you so much for allowing us to testify before our bills this morning. It is an honor to be here today amongst my colleagues, Representative Alexander, Cambensi, and Robbie, as we begin our discussion about a comprehensive bipartisan sexual assault prevention and education bill package. As many of you have recalled, these bill ideas were initially introduced last term during the 2018 investigation into Michigan State University and the Larry Nassar scandal. They are being reintroduced this term to make sure we finally address the critical failings of our state system that go beyond this travesty. Last year, several important pieces of legislation were signed into law. And while those changes begin to address supporting sexual assault survivors and focus on prevention, we must do more. We owe it to survivors throughout Michigan to finish what we started and make our great state a leader in ending sexual assault once and for all. Chairman Filler and members of the House Judiciary Committee, we sincerely thank you for making this package a priority once again. And we appreciate the opportunity to discuss these bills with you today. And we look forward to working with you as part of the legislative process continues. And we're happy to take any questions on the bills today at the end of testimony. And I'm happy, if the chair allows, to pass it on to my colleague, Representative Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. House Bill 4374. This legislation ensures that people who abuse their positions of authority to prohibit others from reporting sexual misconduct are held accountable. It is currently against the law to prohibit someone from reporting sexual assault or child abuse to authorities, but that is only if physical force is used. While the use of physical force is the most obvious form of persuasion, the use of power or authority over an individual is often just as coercive.
Thank you, and we'll just proceed down the list of bills, if I may, Mr. Chair. My bill, House Bill 4378, would exempt under the Freedom of Information Act to prohibit the public disclosure of a sexual assault survivor's identity when they file a civil action anonymously. There are two classes, as you know, of public records, the subject to disclosure and those exempt from disclosure. Generally, all records are subject to disclosure unless specifically exempted. Currently, there are more than 20 distinct categories of public records that are exempt under FOIA. My bill would create a distinct exemption for someone who proceeds anonymously in a civil action in which the party alleges that he or she was a victim of sexual misconduct. And there is already precedent for this sort of protection. Under the Crime Victims' Rights Act, a minor's name, the names of identity of minor victims of sex crimes, and child abuse are exempt from disclosure of FOIA. My bill would expand this precedent and extend this protection to adults. Often survivors live in fear of retaliation, and this sort of fear goes even further than retribution from their abuser. There is a real concern that what would happen if their name was released to the public and how this would impact their future life, whether that's going to school, their career, or identity within the community. So if the court has allowed the plaintiff to proceed litigation anonymously and have conducted the appropriate balance test to determine if the court's transparency outweighs the harm of the litigants, the plaintiff's identity should not be subject to disclosure under FOIA. It takes incredible strength for survivors to come forward and explain what happened to them. We must remember that each person's situation is different, and each survivor has their own path to healing. So their bravery is sacred and extremely delicate, and it should not be endangered or deterred simply because of a FOIA request. This bill contributes to the overall common sense policy changes included in this bipartisan package to ensure that survivors in Michigan are protected and are able to have their unique and individual needs met. So next, Representative Robbie.
Thank you, committee members, for hearing these bills. Those of you that are returning members will recognize this legislation. It is in the same form that it passed the House and Senate committee last year. Essentially, this bill just prohibits school districts from issuing long-term suspensions or expulsions for students that come forward, report being sexually assaulted and actions that they took arising out of that sexual assault. So if somebody's defending themselves, pushing back against an assaulter, they can't be, expelled for that. There are exemptions, though, to that, such as, if they're convicted of, plead guilty to, or adjudicated responsible for aggravated assault, for felonious assault, or other violent crimes. Those are listed in the bill. Also, I know that one of the committee members was wondering what happens if it turns out that the sexual assault was a false report. There is an exemption to that as well within the law. If the Title IX investigation concludes that it is a false report, then the school district can still issue that long-term suspension or expulsion. Essentially, this is trying to solve the problem of school districts that are disciplining people that are coming forward and reporting being sexually assaulted. We've heard incidences of individuals who were caught on camera. The sexual assault was caught and the individual didn't have all their clothes on. And because of that, they were expelled or suspended for 180 days for violating the school's dress code. This was, again, as a result of their assault. And it's unfortunate that schools do this, but it is a reality. And so this bill is really important to make sure that we're protecting students who are coming forward to report being sexually assaulted. So thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm here to testify on my House Bill 4383. My bill would make it so a person who uses his or her professional position of authority over another person to prevent or attempt to prevent the other person from reporting an alleged violation of sexual assault. Why this bill is important is simply to close the gap. What we've seen time and time again, whether it was Penn State University, Baylor University, and one of our own universities here in the state of Michigan, is that victims have reported the assault, but often those people in positions of authority have not taken that claim and reported it to the Title IX official. And this is closing the loop, closing the gap, making sure that there is a 1 year or a fine of not more than $1,000 put with it, so that there is some level of expectation that it is to be done. It's part of your job duty. So thank you.